If you try to picture the largest church on Earth, your mind probably goes straight to Rome, maybe Spain, or even Brazil. But the official Guinness World Record holder isn't on any of those continents. It's here, the Basilica of Our Lady of Peace, towering over the tropical savannah in Yamoussoukro, Côte d'Ivoire. This diagram compares the two structures, and when you look at the sheer footprint and peak height, this building actually dwarfs St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. What makes this scale so jarring is the timing. Construction began in the 1980s, right in the middle of a severe national fiscal crisis. Estimates put the final price tag at up to $600 million. Spending that much capital on a single monument is hard to justify anywhere, let alone in a country where only 17% of the population identifies as Catholic. It was, from the very first poured foundation, the ultimate architectural vanity project. The man who signed the checks was Côte d'Ivoire's founding leader, President Félix Houphouët-Boigny. During his early tenure, the country experienced a massive economic boom, driven by cocoa exports, leaving him flush with cash. In 1983, he used that wealth to relocate the entire political capital. He moved the seat of government away from the bustling coastal hub of Abidjan and placed it deep inland in his own small hometown of Yamoussoukro. The new city was quickly paved with expansive 6-lane highways and wildly extravagant infrastructure. He even built a presidential palace encircled by a moat filled with live crocodiles. To crown his new capital, he hired a French construction firm to build the basilica at a pharaonic pace. The locals didn't need a megachurch. This was about a leader obsessed with cementing his physical legacy directly into the soil of his birthplace. Building a church this massive immediately created a diplomatic headache with the Vatican. Pope John Paul II explicitly requested that the new dome remain lower than St. Peter's out of respect for the Holy See. This elevation diagram shows how the architect navigated that demand. He lowered the base but stretched the dome to 90 meters across. To bypass the height restriction, they added an enormous golden cross, pushing the final height to 158 meters, easily clearing St. Peter's. Engineers packed the massive decorative columns with hidden functionality. Inside the marble, they installed passenger elevators and complex conduits for rainwater drainage. There is also an extreme, localized climate control system. Instead of cooling the cavernous room, individual air conditioning vents pipe cold air directly into the Iroko wood pews. The interior artistry matches the mechanical ambition. The sanctuary is illuminated by 8,400 square meters of handmade French stained glass, the largest surface area of its kind ever created. And hidden within that magnificent glass is a rather telling detail. The president ordered his own likeness to be painted into the artwork, depicting himself kneeling directly beside Jesus Christ. Every engineering choice and artistic commission was designed to project absolute political power, carefully masquerading as religious devotion. When the basilica was finished, it triggered immediate global backlash. Critics pointed to the millions in public funds poured into marble and glass, while a massive portion of the country's population lived in deep poverty. Recognizing the horrific optics of endorsing a $600 million vanity project, Pope John Paul II initially refused to consecrate the monument. To resolve the standoff, the Vatican issued a hardline compromise. The Holy See would only accept the basilica if the Ivorian government committed to building a state-of-the-art hospital nearby. The government formally agreed to the terms. With the promise secured, the Pope finally traveled to Yamoussoukro to consecrate the grounds in 1990. The Vatican's intervention forced a rebalancing of the moral ledger. They anchored an autocrat's towering ego to a promise of vital public utility. The irony is that Houphouët-Boigny died shortly after his masterpiece was finished. His 1994 state funeral remains the only time the 18,000-capacity church was ever actually filled. In the years following his death, the nation's stability collapsed. From 2002 to 2011, Côte d'Ivoire descended into a brutal decade of political crises and civil war. But during the violence, the massive empty basilica suddenly found a desperate and entirely unintended purpose. It became a universally respected neutral zone. Thousands of internally displaced Ivorians fled the fighting and took refuge inside the complex. Both rebel factions and government troops respected the sanctuary, leaving the grounds completely untouched. The sheer imposing scale and religious neutrality of the building managed to protect the exact same impoverished citizens that the original construction had ignored. Once the Civil War ended and stability returned, the government was finally able to make good on that decades-old ultimatum. In 2015, the Hôpital Catholique Saint-Joseph Muscati opened its doors. The €21.3 million medical and academic hub was a reality at last. This data visualization highlights the hospital's clinical output today. It provides 30,000 medical consultations, performs 1,200 life-saving dialysis treatments, and offers heavily subsidized intensive care rates to a severely underserved region. Right next door, the Grand Basilica still towers over the savannah, mostly empty and silent on any given Sunday, while the hospital campus hums with life-saving activity. Architecture often outlives the intent of its creator. What began as a monument to political vanity ultimately succeeded as an engine for regional peace and vital public health.